These four cards just stopped me completely. I was shuffling, I wasn't even planning to pull yet, and these flew out, all four of them. And the moment I saw them laid out together like this, I had to sit down because whoever this reading is for, something in the universe wanted you to see all of this at once, wanted you to look at the full picture before we even begin. So look at them. Really look. Will this ever change? What is the truth? Childhood trauma. The passion I feel is overwhelming. I don't know how to handle this. Four cards, one story, and it is not the story you think it is. Because your first instinct when you saw these was probably to feel called out, or maybe exposed, maybe a little uncomfortable. Maybe you even laughed nervously because something in you recognized it immediately. And that recognition, that little flicker of, okay, this is about me, that is exactly why you need to stay here. Because what these cards are about to reveal goes so much deeper than the surface level of what you're seeing right now. You think you understand what these cards mean, but you only see the titles. I see the thread that connects them, and that thread changes everything. So let me shuffle back in, let me breathe into this energy, and let me take you through this one layer at a time, because these cards did not come out together by accident. They came out in this exact order with this exact combination to tell you something very specific. Something you've been circling around for a long time, but haven't quite been able to name. And before I even go into the individual cards, before I start breaking down what each one means, I want to tell you what I felt the moment these came out. I felt exhaustion, not dramatic exhaustion, quiet exhaustion. The kind that lives underneath a person who has been holding something heavy for so long that they've almost forgotten what it felt like to put it down. The kind of tired that doesn't go away with sleep. The kind that comes from carrying a question that never seems to get answered. And that question, that central, aching, deeply personal question, is sitting right there in the first card. Will this ever change? I want you to really hear how this card came out first, because even though you saw all four cards in the first few seconds of this video, the order matters. The order is always the message. And this card, this question, is the heartbeat underneath everything else. It is the question that brought you here today. It might even be the question that's been waking you up at 3 in the morning, sitting with you in the shower, following you through conversations and quiet moments and everything in between. Will this ever change? And what I need to say first, before anything else, is that the fact you're still asking this question means you haven't given up. But I also feel something underneath the hope. A quiet, almost hidden resignation that's been growing in the background, like you've been asking this long enough that you're starting to wonder if you should just stop asking, stop hoping, start preparing yourself for the possibility that the answer is no. And that is the most painful place to be, not in despair, not in peace, in the in-between, holding on but not sure how much longer you can keep holding. Now, here's what the energy of this card is really showing me, and this is where I need you to pay attention. The question, will this ever change, when we ask it over and over, becomes a way of handing our power to something outside of ourselves. We look at the situation, at the other person, at the circumstances, and we wait for them to move first. We wait for something external to shift before we allow ourselves to feel okay. And I'm sensing very strongly that you have been waiting for a sign, for someone to show up differently, for the energy around you to change, for permission, essentially, to feel at peace. But here's what I already know from seeing all four cards together. And this is the thing I want you to hold as we go deeper. The answer to whether this will change is hidden in the other 3 cards. It is not a simple yes or no. It is a truth, and the truth is about to get very specific. What is the truth? Now look at these first 2 cards side by side, because I showed you all 4 at the beginning, and I want you to go back to that image in your mind. Will this ever change? What is the truth? These 2 cards are in conversation with each other. They are almost answering each other, and also complicating each other. Because you're not asking for comfort. You're not asking someone to promise you that everything will be fine. You are asking for truth. Raw, unfiltered, even if it hurts, truth. And that tells me something very important about where you are right now. You are done with half answers. You are done with almost clarity. Something in you has reached a point where you would rather know the hard thing than keep living in the uncertainty. And here is what I feel around this card. There is something you already know, somewhere in your body, not in your mind, not in the logical, analytical part of you that's been trying to figure this all out, but in your gut, in your chest, in that quiet place underneath the noise. You already know the truth, and it scares you, because the truth might require you to change something, or let go of something, or step into something that feels uncertain and unfamiliar. And now let me connect this back to the first card, because this is where the reading starts to open up. You're asking, will this ever change, while simultaneously asking, what is the truth? And those 2 questions are in a kind of painful tension with each other. Because sometimes the truth is that things won't change until you stop waiting for them to change on their own. Sometimes the truth is that the shift you're longing for has to begin from the inside out, not from the situation, not from the other person, from you. And I think you've been sensing that. I think that's part of why the question feels so heavy, because somewhere underneath it, you already sense that the answer lives inside you, and that is both empowering and completely terrifying. But we're not done, because when I saw all 4 of these cards laid out, the third one is the one that made everything click. The third card is the root. And now that we've felt the weight of these first 2, I need you to really be present for this next one. Childhood trauma. Take a breath. Seriously, wherever you are right now, just take one slow breath. Because this is the card that reframes everything. This is the card that explains why the question in card 1 has been so impossible to answer, why the truth in card 2 has been so hard to see clearly. This is the foundation underneath it all, and it goes back much further than the situation you're currently in. I want to be so careful and so gentle here, because this card is not a label, it is not a verdict. It is a compassionate pointing toward the place where the pattern was first created, the place where a version of you, a much younger, much more vulnerable version, first began to ask, will this ever change? And first began to lose trust in their own truth. Because here is what I feel so strongly right now. What is happening in your present life, the confusion, the longing, the loop of questions that won't resolve, is not new. The feeling is ancient. It is familiar in the specific way that only very old things are familiar, like a smell that takes you back to a place you haven't thought about in years, like a song that makes your chest do something you can't explain.
The situation you're in, the dynamic you're navigating, the person or circumstance that's bringing all of this up, it is not the origin. It is the echo. It is the present-day version of something that was set in motion a long time ago, in an environment where you didn't have the tools, the language, or the support to process what was happening to you. And this is the emotional truth I need you to sit with, because this is one of the most important moments of this entire reading. The reason you don't fully trust your own perception of truth, the reason it's been so hard to see the situation clearly, is because childhood shapes the lens through which we see everything. And if you grew up in an environment where the emotional reality you were experiencing didn't match the story being told around you, where things were fine when they weren't, where your feelings were too much or not valid or inconvenient, where love was inconsistent or conditional or confusing, you learned at a survival level to question yourself before you questioned the situation. You learned that your knowing might be wrong, that your feelings might be exaggerated, that maybe it's you, not the situation, that's the problem. And that learning, that very old, very understandable, very human response to an environment that couldn't fully hold you, is still running. Right now, underneath the questions, underneath the confusion, underneath the search for truth. It is still the operating system. And here is where I need to connect all three cards, because now the picture is becoming very clear. Will this ever change? Childhood trauma, what is the truth? The reason you've been asking if things will change is because you've been in a pattern. And the reason the pattern keeps repeating is because the root wound hasn't yet been addressed. And the reason the truth has been so difficult to access is because that wound trained you to distrust your own knowing. Do you feel how these three connect? Do you feel how they form one single continuous thread? Because now, with all of that in mind, I need you to look at that fourth card again, the one you saw at the very beginning of this video, and I want you to hear what it actually means in the context of everything we've just uncovered. The passion I feel is overwhelming. I don't know how to handle this. Yes, of course, this is the fourth card. Because this is you. This is the part of you that makes everything else make sense. You feel everything. You have always felt everything, with a depth and an intensity that most people around you have probably never fully understood. And that passion, that enormous, alive, sometimes uncontrollable wave of feeling is not a disorder. It is not a flaw. It is the most real and most beautiful thing about you. But here is what happened. You grew up and you came of age and you moved through your life carrying this enormous capacity to feel in a world that often didn't know what to do with it. Maybe in a family that couldn't hold it. Maybe in relationships where it was too much. Maybe in environments where being this alive, this feeling, this present in your emotions was treated like a problem to be solved. And so you learned to manage it, to contain it, to question it, to wonder if the intensity of what you feel is valid, or if you're just being dramatic, just overreacting, just too sensitive. And now, in whatever situation this reading is about, the passion has risen again, and it is overwhelming, and you genuinely don't know how to handle it. Because on one side, you feel it so deeply that it must mean something, it must be real, it must matter. But on the other side, that old voice, the one installed in childhood, is asking, but is it too much? Am I too much? Should I trust this or should I contain it?
And that, right there, is the loop. That is the thing keeping you stuck. Not the situation, not the other person, not fate or timing or circumstance. It is the war between your enormous capacity to feel and your very old, very ingrained fear that feeling this much is dangerous. And I want to tell you something I want you to really receive. The passion you feel is not the problem. It has never been the problem. It is the answer. It is the compass. It is the truest thing about you. The problem, if we're going to call it that, is that no one ever taught you how to be with it, how to trust it, how to let it inform you without drowning you. And that skill, that capacity to feel fully without losing yourself in the feeling, is what this entire reading is pointing you toward. Now, let me bring all 4 of these together into one final, clear, undeniable truth. Because you saw all 4 cards at the beginning, you've been sitting with them this whole time. And now, I want you to understand what they are actually saying as a complete message. You are someone of extraordinary depth. You feel with a passion that most people never access in their entire lives. And that depth, that feeling, that passion, it was born into an environment that didn't always know how to receive it. And so you learned to carry it quietly, to question it, to wonder if the love you feel is real, if the truth you sense is valid, if the change you long for is actually possible. And that quiet, lifelong carrying has led you here, to this moment, to these questions. Will this ever change? What is the truth? I don't know how to handle what I feel. Here is the truth the cards are giving you today, all 4 of them speaking together. Yes, it can change, but the change begins with you deciding, really deciding, that what you feel is real, that your knowing is valid, that the passion inside you is not a burden to be managed, but information to be honored, that the wound you carry from earlier in your life deserves to be seen, gently and directly, not bypassed in the search for external answers. The change begins when you stop waiting for the situation to confirm what you already know, when you stop asking, "What is the truth?" and start trusting the truth your body has been holding all along. The change begins when you look at that passionate, feeling, enormous heart of yours, the one that has been overwhelming you, and instead of trying to contain it, you say, "This is mine. This is real. I don't have to apologize for it. I don't have to manage it into something smaller so that other people are more comfortable. I get to feel this, and I get to let it lead me." As we close, I just want to sit with you for one moment, because you came here today with questions that have been heavy, and I can't promise that everything resolves tomorrow. I can't promise that the situation looks exactly the way you hope it will. But what I can tell you, what these cards are telling you, is that you are not lost. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are someone who is in the middle of something deeply important, a turning point that looks like confusion from the inside, but looks like transformation from a wider view. And that passion you feel, that overwhelming, beautiful, sometimes terrifying passion, that is not a sign that something is wrong with you. That is a sign that you are fully, completely, undeniably alive. Trust it. Trust yourself. The truth you've been looking for has been inside you this whole time. Take care of yourself. I really mean that.